Okay, I think we're live. Actually, not sure. Still trying to figure this out. Hold on one second. I'm on the wrong doohickey, if you can hear me. Let's see. Oh, there we go. All right. Okay, we should be live now. I hope we're live. Hope everyone's doing well tonight. I apologize, the lighting is not great tonight. But anyway, I'm here, and hopefully you can hear me all right. Give me a shout out in the comments if you can hear me. Chancellor says yes. Let's see. I don't know how recent those comments are, though. Hold on a sec. I'm still trying to figure some stuff out. I apologize. It's been a while since I've used this software, and I just want to make sure it's working. Okay, Samsung's plugged in. Everything's plugged in. I think we're good to go. So hopefully some of you are here with us, and it looks like everything's set up. We're good. Okay, I got some questions in the chat, and this is just going to be a pretty... Okay, Jessica says, yes, I can hear you. Great. Thank you, Jessica. So we've got some people hopping on. This is going to be a really informal talk tonight. I don't have anything major planned. I just want to do some Q&A. I did post that I was going to be doing this yesterday, so people could plan ahead and maybe attend. Jennifer says you're live. Yes, I am live. Chancellor says we can hear you. Great. Thank you so much. So, and again, I apologize. This is so dark. Hold on a second. I don't like it. Let's see if I can brighten it up a bit. That's too low. I had a... Let's see. I don't know. Yeah, I had a light that I could shine on myself, but I took it down when I went to Portugal a couple weeks ago, and I don't know where I put it. So I don't see it. It might have fallen on the ground. Anyway, comedy of errors here tonight. I've already run some people off. Great. So anyway, what I wanted to do tonight is basically do some Q&A, answer some questions that you might have about anything related to setting up LLCs, to trademarks, to contracts, anything legal related that I can help you with your online business. I just want to answer some questions. As a disclaimer, I do want to let you know that I can't give you legal advice. Nothing that I say on here should be legal advice. Also, there's no attorney-client privilege between me and anyone that's here in the chat. So if you are wherever you're calling from, if you mention something in here, I do want to let you know there's no attorney-client privilege. So that could be, if you're involved in a lawsuit or something, that could be discoverable by someone else. So don't post anything here that you don't want to be public because you're waiving attorney-client privilege, because there is no attorney-client privilege. So I've got some questions here that I'm going to go ahead and just jump through. The first question, I'm just going to go right down the list because obviously, since this is a YouTube Live, I can't have you on with me. I'd love to have guests on these things. That would be awesome. But I can't do that. So I just have to go down the questions that you post in the chat. So if you have questions and you want to go ahead and post them in the chats, please go ahead and do that. And then I will tell you right away, right at the beginning, right now I'm in the process of relaunching my Lock It Down Legal Toolkit. I'm going to talk about that at the end, but I just want to let you know I've got a very special offer for you if that's something you're interested in, I will post that at the end. But I want to get through the Q&A first. I want to do all that and go from there. So let's see. Jennifer says, when you form your LLC, will an existing DBA automatically fall under that LLC? Is there a process to be completed? If you did have an existing DBA, Jennifer, if you name the LLC as something similar to the existing DBA, the state's going to figure that out. They're going to ask you for the paperwork, or they're going to want to make sure that you are the same person who owns the LLC and who has the DBA, and they're going to sync those two up. So that typically would happen, yes. How quickly can an S election be taken after forming an LLC? You can do an S election at any point. I don't typically recommend it unless you're at a point where it makes sense financially to do an S election, and typically that means you're generating between $25,000 and $50,000 net profit per year from your LLC. But I will tell you that the deadline to file an LLC is either 75 days after, or deadline to file an S corporation is either 75 days after you form your LLC or March 15th if your LLC takes effect on January 1st. And by the way, it's, I'm on the East Coast here of the United States. It's a little after 8 o'clock. I've had a long day at work, so I got a beer with me, and I figure I'm going to take questions as long as it takes to drink this beer, and that's what we're going to do. So we're going to have fun with it. So tonight's YouTube Live is brought to you by a nice Oktoberfest from Boston. Anyway, if your LLC is formed in September, what are your quarterly tax payment obligations for that year? That would depend on how much money you make in the year. If it's formed in September, probably not much, but you would talk to an accountant about that. Question above assumes no S election has been taken by an LLC formed late in the year. Yeah, and if you form your LLC late in the year, one of the main reasons to do it would probably be because you'd want to take advantage of that S election for the year. There is late relief that you can apply for with the IRS. So, for example, if you missed that 75-day window, and let's say you wanted the LLC or the S election to be effective for the entire year, there is a procedure you can follow to do that if it makes sense. But I will tell you, it's September now. If you don't get that in probably by the beginning of November, you're going to miss that cutoff. And that's if you think your business is going to make at least that, like I said, $25,000 to $50,000 for the year, and you want to make that S election retroactive to the beginning of the year, then you really need to make that decision probably by the middle of November. Let's see. As a realtor setting up an LLC, this is from the Jesse Summers. As a realtor setting up an LLC, any tips on how I should pay myself? Well, yeah, I think it depends, Jesse. If you, again, you could form an S corporation, then you pay yourself a reasonable salary and then plus a bonus. If you're just a straight up LLC and do not have an S election, then you can just take distributions. I typically like to see people limit their distributions to between 40 and 50% of their net profit. And the reason for that is because you need to withhold a little bit for taxes. You want to withhold a little bit for the profit for the business, and then you also want to withhold a little bit for the expenses related to the business. So usually, depending on how big your business is, as a solopreneur or solo entrepreneur who's just, like a realtor, for example, I don't know what your expenses are related to the business, but you probably want to hold back at least 30 or 40% for expenses. Again, 10, 15% for taxes, and 5-10% for profit, and then whatever's left you would pay yourself as owner's pay. And so I have a spreadsheet that I follow. I've got all these numbers calculated, and I do a distribution twice a month to myself, depending on how the law firm does. Let's see. Anatoly Vikim. let's see. Is it a good idea to open an LLC in the U.S. as a non-U.S. citizen or non-U.S. resident for online coaching and online courses? We would like to target an international audience. Yes, but as someone who's someone who I presume you live in Russia or someplace else, because I see that your name is spelled in the Cyrillic alphabet. You're going to have some special issues pertaining to that. So, I mean, yes, it's something you can do. A lot of people do that who are non-U.S. citizens, who are but you're just going to have special issues, and that's kind of beyond the scope of what we can talk about today. Jesse again asked, my question may not apply since I'm not an online business. Oh, no, Jesse, your question is relevant to, I do talk a lot to online businesses, but the information I'm providing is just the same as for an online business as it is for a realtor, as it is for a consultant, as it is for, anyone else who's, maybe working a therapist or something, for example. So definitely relevant. Jessica says, starting a planner business, should I get a copyright for my designs? I don't hear much on people talking about this specific line of work. I don't know what you mean by planner business. Could a copyright for your designs? If this is something where you're going to be doing where your designs are something you're going to be selling or using a lot in your work, then potentially. Now, copyright is protecting, basically artistic form. It could be written words, it could be pictures, it could be designs, it could be, anything like that. So I don't really know, when you say a planner business, are you making like physical planners? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. But if you're making, when you say planner business, if it means you're making a planner that you're going to sell, like on Etsy or something, you might want to think about copywriting it. I typically tell the students in my Toolkit course, I tell my clients that anything that you think that you're going to have that is going to generate a lot of value to your business, that is your intellectual property that you're putting on paper or on a computer or something, that you're going to be sharing with the world, is probably worth copywriting potentially. It's not that expensive to copyright, like $50 or $60. Jeanette says, cheers. Cheers to you, Jeanette. Wilford says, let's see, can I do this? Oh, yeah. How can you lock your business from chaos? That can be marriage or creditors. I don't know, a premarital agreement, probably for marriage. Creditors, if you have creditors in place, I don't know what you can. If there's existing creditors, you can't form a business and get out of that. That's fraud. So that's not going to work. But certainly following all the rules that I talk about here on the channel, and doing the things that you need to do to make sure your business is legally legit, that's going to be the best protection. Okay. Anatoly asks, is it a good idea to run a stocks trading as a business, open LLC as a foreign investor? I mean, you're going to get 50 different opinions on that. And again, you're outside the United States, so I don't know if it really makes sense for you or not. Most of the people I talk to are here in the United States or U.S. citizens living abroad. You're a foreigner. If you start an LLC in the United States, you're kind of subjecting yourself to U.S. laws and things like that. So I don't know if that's a good idea for you or not, Anatoly. Leonard says, an S corporation is an accountant's best friend and a person's worst nightmare. Any LLC should be at least a 3-member LLC. It's also important to have an attorney custom draft all documents for an LLC. I mean, okay, not really a question there. Leonard, I don't know if you're an attorney or an accountant or both. I mean, a lot of people I talk to, a lot of people who listen to the channel are solopreneurs. So it's really a 3-member LLC is not necessarily possible. Number one. Also, an S corporation, I don't necessarily agree with your take that they're an accountant's best friend and a person's worst nightmare. An S corporation can save individuals a substantial amount of money on their taxes. And for the type of people that I work with that are making typically hundreds of thousands of dollars a year as solopreneurs, not having an S corporation is costing them tens of thousands of dollars in taxes. So I don't necessarily agree with that. Science math. What if you have proof on behalf of both parties for incorrect assumptions stated in a cease and desist letter? I'm not sure what the question is there. I don't know that I can answer that. Carlos, super chat, $5. Thank you. I appreciate that. Starting a business by myself, is a single LLC okay? It's a consulting business in trucking. Yeah, absolutely. It's okay. Here's the other thing. If you're in certain states, there's community property states and there's equitable distribution states. And if you are in an equitable distribution state, which is most of the states in the East, a lot of the states in the West are community property states, and you file an LLC with a spouse or someone else, then you are all of a sudden subjecting yourself to filing a partnership tax return. Now, it's my understanding, I think this is right, that if you form an LLC in a community property state, now I've never lived in a community property state, I've never taken the bar exam in a community property state, I don't know the laws in community property states, but from what I've read and from what I understand, if you do that in a community property state, you form your LLC with your spouse, then you're not going to have to file a partnership tax return. And I only bring this up because I had someone that I helped set up an LLC, and they lived in a state that was asking them to file a partnership tax return, and it was a logistical nightmare for them. A lot of extra expense that they didn't need at that point. So I would say, yes, like an LLC, an S corporation, it doesn't make sense for everybody, but for the people it does make sense for, it's a good idea. Jesse says, I believe you've made mention of the Profit First system. Is that the guide that you're using when making the suggestions you did when answering my Realtor Pay questions? Yes, although, the percentages that I mention, there's no... the reason we usually say 5 to 10 or 10 to 15% for taxes is because if you assume a tax rate of, let's say, 30% and 50% of your expenses or 50% of your income is going to your expenses for the business, and maybe 50% is, and expenses being taxes as well, and 50% is going to your personal income, then you don't need to withhold 30% of everything. It would only be 10 or 15%, and that is 30% of the 50%, if that makes sense. That's probably very confusing. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, I follow Profit First. I love Mike's books, Mike Michalowicz, and I actually need to go back and reread it again. I like to read his books at least like once a year, and there's like 3 or 4 of them that I follow pretty religiously. Let's see. Jennifer says, do you recommend anyone working as a bookkeeper who can help with QuickBooks setup? I'm going to say no. I would. The bookkeeper that I work with is fairly expensive. There's some other bookkeepers I know who are not quite as expensive, but they're busy. I don't have a good name off the top of my head. I probably should have a name off the top of my head. The problem with bookkeepers is there's a lot of bookkeepers who they're not very good. There's a lot of bookkeepers that are very good, and so I hesitate to refer people to that. But I would do your due diligence, reach out to 3 or 4, 5 people that you find maybe locally to you, and use one of them. Personally, I use Ron Parisi. He's with CPA on Fire. They're the same guys that do John Lee Dumas's books, and I use him because he's very familiar with online business, so he's great. Let's see. Chancellor, thanks so much for all the information. I'm new to the channel, but getting through your videos. Quick question, maybe a little off topic. Would you recommend going through an online service to set up an LLC, or should I just do it myself? My fear is making an error somewhere on the paperwork. Can you speak at all to the usual quality of the services? Yeah, I typically recommend if you go to, there's an affiliate link that is in most of my videos. It's hawthornelaw.net/incorporate. And it's going to take you to, it's an affiliate link, so I would get a kickback if you used it. I appreciate that. But you don't have to. You can use whoever you want. And it's to InkFile. And the reason I like InkFile is because they will set up your LLC for free, and they'll serve as your registered agent for the first year. Now, you still might need someone to help you set up an operating agreement and things like that. But just for the paperwork that's involved in setting up an LLC, that's pretty easy to do. You don't really need anyone professional to do that for you, although, we do that. I mean, if you wanted to use me to do that, I do that for people all the time, usually a couple a week. But, that's for people that really, truly want the hand-holding and want somebody to do it for them and make sure it's done correctly. If that's the type of person you are and you really want to talk to somebody and make sure everything is, you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's and not making any mistakes, then that's the way to do it. For people that are more DIY people, I would say, I would go to something like that. I mean, I would do that, like using that link I just gave, before I would do it myself. Like, even if I was setting up my own LLC, I would use that link just for the sole reason that they serve as the registered agent for a year. And I use a corporate registered agent for my law firm as well. I don't serve as my own registered agent. I don't recommend that anyone else do that as well. Okay. Leonard says, I'm a licensed New Jersey attorney. Too many creatives rely on LegalZoom or some other template-based service. What they learn the hard way is a good attorney is never cheap, and a good lawyer and a cheap lawyer is never good. All right, well, I agree with all that. I agree with that, Leonard. And I LegalZoom, I hesitate to talk poorly about them on a YouTube video, but I will tell you that they do give me a good deal of work, and not in the good way. I've seen a lot of their documents over the years and had to fix a lot of their documents over the years. So Jessica says, we're back to Jessica. Yes, physical planners. Yes. So yeah, I mean, if you're creating like a physical planner that you're going to be selling, and it's your original design, then yes, I would consider copywriting that, especially if you're putting like, and now you need to make sure you have permissions and things for all this, but if you're putting quotes, and if you're putting your own personal information in there and content, then yes, absolutely, I would definitely, if you're selling that, I would recommend copywriting that. Zayn says, in one of your videos, you talked about privacy laws. Can you give an example of these benefits for forming an LLC in, say, New Mexico? I mean, I can't think of a good example off the top of my head. I know that New Mexico will do private LLCs. I mean, there's two sides to the coin. Some people like them because they don't want people being able to look them up. I've had clients who, were like, millionaire next door type of people, and they owned lots of properties, and they didn't want their neighbors looking them up and seeing that they had like 15 rental properties, right? And in that situation, you can do a lot of the same things that you can do with a private LLC. With a trust, you can just put the property into a trust, or have the trust be the owner of the member of the LLC or something like that. So there's ways to do it without forming the LLC in New Mexico. It just gets a little bit more complicated. You need to have a lawyer, probably, that, as Leonard would say, spend a lot of money to do that work for you. Trust work is not inexpensive. So I would, I'll tell you what, I've got another situation where a client formed an LLC in Wyoming for privacy reasons, and now he's having a really hard time because he's trying to sell his business and he can't actually prove to the buyer, or he's trying to transfer it. I can't remember what he's trying to do. Anyway, he can't prove that he owns the LLC because he used like an incorporation service to form the LLC in Wyoming, where he doesn't live, by the way. And he can't show anywhere that he's the owner of or the member of the LLC because he's not listed on the documents in Wyoming. So, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, I would say. But if you don't live in New Mexico, if you don't work in New Mexico, I don't know if it makes sense to form an LLC in New Mexico just for the privacy reasons. Because if you're somewhere else, there's other ways to do it. Michael, just wanted to tell you thank you for what you are doing, helping so many, and of course for what you do. Very kind. Oh, you're very welcome, Michael. I appreciate it. Rigo says, I just started my Facebook shop online. It's an extension of my physical shop, brick and mortar. Is that good or bad in regards for taxes? I'm not sure. I don't know how to answer that question. It's going to be the same. Whether you're online or offline or whatever, your taxes are going to come down to your income and expenses. So yeah, I don't know how, I don't know how to answer that question, Rigo. I'm not sure I quite understand the question. Jennifer says, what does a bookkeeper seeker initially look for in a person doing that work to qualify whether to hire them? That they're responsive, I would say. That's the biggest thing. Like I hired somebody before I hired Ron, won't mention her name, and I was referred to her by someone else, and I mean, I met with her. We had an initial kickoff meeting. I gave her all my passwords to all my bank accounts and gave her all the information she needed to get started, my QuickBooks access, all that stuff. And it was like weeks and crickets. And I go into QuickBooks, and I stopped doing anything in QuickBooks thinking that they would be handling it for me and updating everything. Nothing was getting updated. I just fell behind with my bookkeeping and had to pay my new guy to basically go back and fix everything. So responsive, I would say, the big thing. There's a lot of bookkeepers that are just not responsive. I think they take on too much work and they don't have time to do it all, or they don't have the staff to do it all, or they don't have the staff that's knowledgeable enough to do it all. So there's a lot of issues there. Is $200 reasonable for QuickBooks setup? I mean, that's impossible to answer, Jennifer, unfortunately, because, I mean, it really depends in large part on how much setup there is to do. You would be amazed. I mean, it depends on how many accounts you've got. It depends on how many transactions they have to go back and fix. It depends on if they have to fix your chart of accounts. It depends on, is there payroll involved? There's so many things. Anyway. Rockers Los Angeles, Super Chat, $5. Thank you so much, Rockers. Could startup costs and organizational costs on a personal credit card before the LLC was formed be deducted still? Thanks for helping everyone. I typically tell people to talk to their accountant about that to make sure it gets handled the right way. I would say the short answer is yes, but I know that it can get complicated, and that's something that an accountant would be in a much better position to answer than I am. I don't know that I can answer that specifically, unfortunately. I wish I could. I will tell you from my personal experience, what my accountant has told me is that if I use a personal credit card for the business, to use it only for the business, not to use it for anything other than the business. Business, and that's it. And a lot of times when people are just getting started, maybe they can't qualify for a business credit card for whatever reason, and so they have to do things on a personal credit card. And I think that's good, because when you start mixing business and personal expenses on the same credit card, that's a problem. Not only is it a problem when it comes tax season, but it's also a problem just logistically. You're potentially piercing the corporate veil and other things. So Anyway, but in terms of if you did charge those things to a personal credit card before you set up the LLC, I think that you probably would be able to write those off. But again, talk to your accountant and make sure you do it the right way. Singing, dancing, muscle man. The name of my business is simply my first and last name. And my credentials. I am marketing 2 services, personal training and massage therapy. What is your advice on forming 2 DBAs for the same LLC? 2 DBAs for the same LLC. So basically, I think what your question is should you have 2 LLCs or should you have 1 LLC is really the question. And the way I typically respond to these type of questions is my general advice to people is 1 business, 1 LLC. So if you've got 2 businesses that are very, very similar, maybe you have, let's say, a yoga business, like you do yoga, and then you also sell yoga products. Those might go under the same LLC. But if you have a yoga business on the one hand, and then you have a business coaching business on the other hand, those would not necessarily be under the same LLC, if that makes sense. So you're talking about personal training, massage therapy. I have no idea how interconnected those are. This is the type of thing where you would go to a lawyer and they would ask you a lot of questions about the businesses to try and help you figure that out, whether or not it makes sense to do them together. But I think that's what you're asking is it make sense to have two LLCs or 1 LLC? And so that's what I would say about that. Let's see. Rigo says, I saw your video living abroad. I did the numbers for moving to Mexico, and I would save $25K for the whole year. I thought that was great, going to a digital nomad. Great video. Thank you, Rigo. Yeah, I did a collaboration with some other YouTubers this week. That video will probably be up in about a month, but they live in Portugal. And we talked about all the benefits of why they decided to move to Portugal in terms of being digital nomads and everything from tax benefits to how they've operated their business to the way of life, just everything. We talked about a whole sorts of things. We went on the phone for like almost an hour. And so it was a really great video. And so that'll be coming out. It'll probably come out at the beginning of October, I would say, if I had to guess. But anyway, I'll leave you in suspense for that. Thank you, Rigo. CAS Original. In the process of starting my small business, is it possible to use a P.O. box instead of my home address? I do not want people knowing where I live. Well, okay. So every state's going to be a little bit different on this. Some states will allow you to use a P.O. box for your business address. Some states won't. It really depends on the state where you're living. So I don't know what the rules are where you live. Again, my general advice to people when they're setting up their LLCs and they ask this question is, I'm not a big fan of P.O. boxes. I'm not a big fan of P.O. boxes because, number one, a lot of states will reject them as business addresses. They just will. And they'll figure out and a lot of people were like, oh, well, I'll just use the suite number for the post office box, the street address and the suite number for the post office. They can figure that out. You can go to USPS.com and you can type in the address and it'll tell you it's a post office box. So the Secretary of State's, they're not stupid. They'll look those things up. I typically recommend if you're living at home and you're setting up an LLC, number one, you're going to want to set up the LLC in your own state. Don't go somewhere else. We already talked about that. Number two, use a mail forwarding service for like $30 or $40 a month. Maybe a little bit more. You can actually have a service that will potentially serve as your registered agent and they'll take your mail at their address through an office suite. You can pay as much as $100, $120 a month and then get some additional services and maybe even a lease to make yourself a little bit more legitimate. But I mean, for just straight mail forwarding, you can pay, I think, $30, $40 a month and do that. That's what I would recommend. And look for a service that will scan your mail and post it to an online portal, or give you the option that they can forward your mail to you, maybe once a week. That's what I would look for if I were doing that. And that'll keep your home address private. Now, when it comes to banking, you're going to need to list a resident address, and you can just list your address for that. And then the banks will typically ask for 2 addresses. They'll ask for one, a residence address, like a physical address that you put down where they do not mail anything to. It's just they need it for FDIC regulations. And then second, they will want to see a forwarding or a shipping address. And that's where you can give them the mail forwarding address if you want, and then they can mail things there. Or alternatively, you just tell them not to mail anything at all, just email you everything, and that's fine too. Let's see. Jennifer says, as an LLC is formed, are you locked into filing taxes as an LLC on all income for, say, the 8 months that passed while you were operating under a DBA? So I think what Jennifer's asking is, so if the LLC is formed, let's say September 1st, because we're just past September, but for January through August, you're doing business as a DBA. Now, technically, that's 2 separate business entities. You've got a sole proprietorship and you've got the LLC. So you're going to report all the income from January to August as a sole proprietorship, and you're going to report the income once you start operating as the LLC under the LLC. And that would be Schedule C, typically, of your federal tax return. Jennifer says, this kind of Q&A is priceless. Good. I'm glad you appreciate that. I can't believe I've gotten through all the questions. I'm sure some more will pop in. We've got about 20 people on. That's great. 23. Awesome. I'm going to have a little sip of my beer. I've been talking too much and haven't had a chance to really drink any of it, but that's okay. I'll go as long as we need to go tonight. I like doing these things. I've got away from doing them. It's been a really way busier summer than I thought it was going to be this summer. And so I want to get back to doing these things like once a week at a minimum, and just doing live Q&A like this. And if this is something that you're interested in, as I was starting to say at the beginning, my Lock It Down Legal Toolkit is currently open for enrollment, and it's a monthly. Well, so there's 2 components to it now. You can purchase the standalone membership if you want, and then there's also a monthly membership component as well. But you have to purchase the toolkit to have the monthly membership, and the way it works is every month we bring on subject matter experts. Like this month, I'm bringing on Brittany McBean, who is a copywriter. She's amazing. She's got a really great process for researching and developing sales copy that converts. So I'm going to be bringing her on this month. And then then we do a coaching call each month. And then in addition, people that join the membership, they get access to all the new templates that we bring in. The people that are just members of the toolkit that don't pay the monthly membership do not get access to that. So, and as we get closer to the end, top of the hour, I'll probably share the link for that. Let's see. Jennifer M. says, is there a penalty for using a privately owned HUD building when you've been injured and you have assets such as royalties a single person needed to health? I have no idea. I don't even know what that means, honestly. Yeah, I'm sorry, Jennifer. I can't answer that question. I have no idea what that means. Lisa said, I'm sorry, do you recommend a mail forwarding service? I'm trying to work and listen. I do. I recommend a mail forwarding service if you're working from home. to keep your home address private. That's what as related to your business. So if you have an LLC, I recommend some sort of mail forwarding service for that. Obviously, if you've got an office space like I do, I've got an office space here, an office condo. I just use that. I don't need the mail forwarding service, but if I were working from home and I did not have this space, then I would be using mail forwarding service. And for the price, $40, $50, totally worth it for the privacy and peace of mind. Nick says, "You the man." Thank you, Nick. I appreciate it. Growth, love, attraction says, "Yo!" I think that's what you're saying. I hope that's what you're saying. Anatoly says, "Will I be an owner of that LLC?" I'm not sure. I don't know. Do you recommend trademarking your LLC? Oh, that's a good question. That's a frequent question that I get that a lot of people don't understand. And so, first things first. The name of your LLC does not have. And I probably answered this question 10 times this past week. Because I do strategy calls. Also, I do half-hour strategy calls, and I usually do like 5 or 6 of them a week with people, where I just take questions and we talk. Basically they're hiring me as their attorney/legal strategist for about a half hour to just go through the things, and I ask them questions about their business, and we talk about that. And this is a question that comes up over and over and over again, and so I talk about it a lot. And it's, do you recommend trademarking your LLC? Number one, the name of your LLC does not have to be in any way connected to your trademark, right? They can be 2 completely different names. So now let's put it this way. If you have a name that you want to trademark and you want to use that name with your LLC, you could do that. And I have a trademark client right now that is doing that. I told them this, and I'll tell you this, I don't recommend it. And the reason I don't recommend it is because if you decide at some point that you want to sell your LLC, or not even, you don't want to sell, let's say at some point you want to sell your brand. You build up a brand under your LLC and you want to sell it. When most people are selling their business, they're not selling their LLC. It's really what they're doing is they're transferring the assets that their LLC owns to somebody else who is then putting them under their LLC. So you're going to keep your LLC, but you're going to sell away all your assets of the LLC. So when somebody sells a business, that's typically what's happening. Yes, is it possible to sell the LLC as well? It is, but a lot of people, especially smaller businesses, that's not what they're doing because they're going to keep that LLC. So if you trademark a name that is also the name of your LLC, then you have a problem because now you have to give away the LLC, or you've got to change the name of the LLC, and it just causes an administrative, another issue that you've got to deal with that makes things a little bit more complicated if at some point you decide you want to sell the business. So do you recommend trademarking your LLC? I typically don't. I would come up with something generic like my initials or my kids' initials or my favorite beer, whatever, something. And then I would trademark the brand name. That's what I do. So like my business name is the Hart Law Firm, or Hawthorne Law. But that's not the brand. Lock It Down Legal is my brand. I'm actually in the process of trademarking that right now. That's not going to be incorporated with any of my LLCs. Okay. That was a really long-winded answer. Sorry about that. How do we know if we pay quarterly or annual taxes? Well, most people, at least on a federal level, are going to pay quarterly taxes. And if you talk to your accountant, they'll be able to walk you through that and tell you if you have estimated taxes you need to pay. I mean, usually people do have to pay estimated quarterly taxes, and it's up to you whether you pay them or not. I mean, I'm not an accountant, so I don't know the true answer to this. I don't think they might be required, but the penalties, if you don't pay them, it's typically an underpayment penalty or maybe some interest, and it's usually not that much. But I would talk to your accountant. Where will I find more videos about the lock it down steps after LLC formation, and can you talk a little bit about what to prioritize? So Jennifer, for people that use me to set up their LLC, I typically send them a 5-page checklist of things to do, best practices to do after you set up your LLC. So, and that usually gets emailed out after we set up the LLC. So, in terms of, and then also, of course, people who are in my Lock It Down Legal Toolkit also get access to that type of information through the Lock It Down Legal Toolkit. So, but in terms of steps after LLC formation, what to prioritize, I mean, obviously you want to get your EIN number, which I do for people if they use me to set up their LLC. You want to set up your bank accounts. You need to set up a payroll provider if you're going to file your S corporation. You need to get your corporate books in order. I mean, there's a gazillion things you need to do. I couldn't list them all off the top of my head. I've done some videos on what to do after you form your LLC. Again, not all inclusive, but it's got a lot of the steps that you need to follow. Lisa says, I'm sorry, I was wondering, was there a specific mail forwarding service you recommend? No, and the reason why is because some of them are in different states and they're not in other states. So like, for example, Earth Class Mail is one that I mean, I really want to recommend them, but their service that they do for solopreneurs is like $19 a month that they market to solopreneurs and digital nomads and things. But I don't think it works. At the $19 price point, I don't actually think that it provides you with the service that you need. And that is because, number one, they only have an office in Beaverton, Oregon for that service level. And number two, it's a digital mail forwarding address, which means it's not going to work for the banks. So I hesitate to recommend a service. I think you need to do your due diligence. And what I mean by that is, so the things that I'd be looking for in a service, you can Google mail forwarding service. You're going to find somebody who's local to you that has an office that you can use for forwarding that's in your state that you can list on your LLC paperwork. I would prefer to see a company that's more, I hate to say this, but more corporate. And the reason for that is because the larger corporate entities, they're not going to mess anything up, right? They're going to have systems in place for how they're going to deal with the mail, and they're not going to lose anything. And that would be a big concern of mine. And then you want to make sure they can scan everything into a portal that you can access and it's all secure. Ideally, they'd be able to deposit checks for you if a check were to come in and you need to have it deposited in your bank account. But usually that's an add-on service. So I hesitate to recommend a service because you're going to need something local. And a lot of these, even the one that I'm looking at right now for an LLC that I'm going to set up as of the beginning of the year, they're only in like 7 states. So, I mean, that doesn't help people that are in the other 43 states, which is why I can't really recommend them. Anyway, I probably should do a table of where to go for mail forwarding services in all 50 states. Anyway, Steve, by purchasing and or subscribing to your Lock It Down product, are we actually retaining your legal services in the event that we encounter a surprise legal episode? No, Steve. No. If you... I now that being said, I have a lot of students in my Lock It Down toolkit that graduate on and actually hire me to serve as their lawyer. So that does happen. I provide outsourced general counsel services. We do trademarks for people. We do other things. We set up LLCs, obviously. So, but being that the toolkit is meant, the course component is meant to just really provide the templates that you need and the tutorials you need to figure out how to do things the right way from the very beginning. And then we have an add-on membership that includes, like I said, the monthly coaching calls and things of that sort. But again, on those coaching calls, I can't give legal advice. Just like right here, I can't give legal advice. This is all just general advice. It's not anything specific to anyone that's on this YouTube live tonight. So anyway, rockers, Speedos or thong? I'd probably have to go with Speedos. And let's see, hold on a second. Oh, sorry, I'm going to skip right over. Nick, super chat. Thank you, Nick. I appreciate the super chat. Would it be fine to create an LLC and operate it while working for a company that always has me on the road? Oh, I really want to answer your question, Nick. But I mean, I don't know what you mean by on the road. I mean, do you mean you're a trucker? I wouldn't be operating something else while you're trucking. Does it mean you work during the day, you travel, you work during the day doing like consulting, and then you have nights to yourself? Anytime you're getting involved in a situation where you're working for yourself while you're working for another employer, my general advice is get permission. Make sure it doesn't violate your employee manual, because if your employer finds out about it and it does violate your human resources manual, it might be cause for you to get fired. But like, I'll give you a good example. So when I was applying to law school, and knew I was going to be leaving to law school, I was very upfront with my employer about it at the time. And they were great. Like, they were like totally supportive. They paid me for like a month while I was still at law school because they were nice. Like, I did good work for them. They liked me. I liked them. We left on very good terms. And I think the same. And then when I went to first start my first law firm, I was working at a law firm, and I told them I'd be leaving to start my law firm. And the partner was like, good for you. And he like referred me as first client. So, I mean, I think it's, how is your relationship with your employer? I try and be upfront with them. If it's just a side hustle, that's might be a little bit different. But if you're actually trying to build a legitimate business, I probably would be upfront and talk to your employer. But again, I don't know for sure, and that's a really hard question to answer. And that's probably something that needs to happen in a lawyer's office or with a consultant, so they can get more information about your situation. Jennifer says, I want to trademark a blog name. Do you handle that work? Yes, we do. We absolutely do. We do trademarks. And by the way, yes, we do trademarks. I'll just leave it at that. Legal clarity is precious. Really appreciate it, Attorney Hart. You're very welcome, Jennifer. Nick, trucker. Yeah, that's going to be harder because they drive you to death, like, right? You're driving like 10, 12, 14 hours a day. I don't know how you're going to, well, it depends on so many factors. We'd have to have a conversation about that. I don't know that I can give you good advice there. Question from Carlos. Mail forwarding services versus virtual offices, or are they one and the same? They're not the same. That is a great question, Carlos. So if you go to the U.S. Postal Service, and I would show you my screen, but I'll mess stuff up and I don't know how to do it, and I wouldn't be able to figure out how to get back here. It depends on if you need it for your bank account. I'll leave it at that. If you need it for your bank account, then you need to have a virtual office and you need to have a lease. And you could probably get one of those for about $50 a month. where they'll give you a lease. They might even give you, for an additional fee, a utility statement if you need it for your bank account. This is really important for digital nomads, specifically people that are living and working overseas. I've learned a lot about this in the past couple weeks since I was in Portugal at the beginning of the month. Well, actually, beginning of last month. If you are working out of your house, then you probably just need a mail forwarding service because you can use your residence address for the bank, for your business bank accounts. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Brew Brew. You are welcome. John Allen. This is great. Love the opportunity to hear Q&A live. I joined the party late. Will you be doing these regularly? John, I'm going to try to. I got away from doing them during the summer because I just had such a busy summer, but I'm going to try and do them about once a week, usually on like Thursday night or Friday afternoon, something like that. Let's see. Renee Scott says, holy moly, I'm on this live. I watch you all the time. Well, thank you, Renee. I appreciate that. All right, we're back to drinking, I think. You know, I'm only halfway through my first beer, and I don't know. I mean, if you drink, don't drink, that's fine. No judgment here. I grew up in a family where it was accepted and no issues with drinking and no alcoholics in my family. I think we're very fortunate for that regard. I know there's other people that have very strong opinions about it, but doing one of these YouTube lives and turning it into some sort of like, I'm just not going to say it, some sort of game, I'll leave it at that, some sort of game. Every time somebody asks me a question about mail forwarding, I have to bottoms up. I'm just kidding. Edit that out right now. All right. What other questions do people have about LLCs? Okay, here we go. Good. What is the best way to pay yourself in a single member LLC? So that question is somewhat complicated. And the reason why it's complicated is because it depends on how you're being taxed. If you are being taxed as a sole proprietor, then you can just write yourself a check anytime you want for as much as you want if you have money in your business bank account. That doesn't mean that's the best way to do it. And the reason I say that is because the last thing you want to do is get to the end of the year and then find out that you have a huge tax bill and you don't have any money to pay the taxes. So you always want to make sure, regardless of how you pay yourself from your business, regardless of how you're being taxed, you want to make sure you have a cash reserve set up for taxes. Which is why I'm such a big fan of Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. Now, if you are an S corporation, and so if you're an LLC, you've elected to be taxed as an S corporation, then you have to pay yourself what's called a reasonable salary. And that typically, the rule of thumb that I follow and that I've heard other attorneys and accountants follow is typically it's going to be 20 to 30% of your net profit at the end of the month. So if you calculate your net or at the end of the year. So if you calculate your net profit and your net profit is $100,000 at the end of the year, then you probably want to pay yourself around $30,000 as a salary. And then the other $70,000 you're going to take as a profit distribution. And that's general. I mean, I think that it also has to be a reasonable salary. So is a $30,000 salary a reasonable salary for what you're doing? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. You might need to pay yourself a little bit more. If you're an attorney, you might need to pay yourself $50,000 or $60,000 to make it a reasonable salary on a $100,000 profit. If you, do a house cleaning business where you own the business, then maybe you do pay yourself $30,000 or $40,000 because that's what you pay a cleaner, maybe, that works for you. So it just is really going to depend on your situation. Now, Not sure if you touched on this since I joined late. Can you talk about the affiliate service you recommend, Inc. files, such as why you recommend it? Yeah, John, I recommend it because, and we did talk about this a little bit, but I recommend it because they do not charge to set up your LLC, and they'll give you your first year of registered agent service for free. So basically, to hire them to do your LLC, the only thing you're going to pay, unless you're in one of those funny states where you have to publish, like New York is one of them, then the only things you're going to have to pay are the filing fee. So if I wanted to file an LLC in North Carolina through InkFile, I would pay them $125, which is the filing fee in North Carolina, and that's all I'd have to pay them. And then they'd set up my LLC, and they would serve as my registered agent. Now, the reason they're able to do that is because then they can also upsell you for EIN numbers, for operating agreement templates, for annual maintenance plans, different things like that. And that's up to you if you want to take that or not. They've got another plan up that does charge all that. Me personally, I wouldn't need that because I know what to do. But other people that don't, they might need that. So if you just need straight somebody file your articles of incorporation and serve as your registered agent, and maybe you bought an operating agreement from me, maybe you know how to set up your own EIN number, then yeah, I think they're great. Renee says, do you need to renew your LLC every year? Is it only once to keep the LLC going? It depends on the state. So I actually have an LLC startup course that I'm finishing up. And what's keeping me from getting it finished is I've been researching the laws for all 50 states and how to set up your LLC, the annual reporting, all that things. I've got like 10 more states to go. I'm at the end of the alphabet, but so I just recently did Ohio. Ohio does not have an annual reporting requirement. But like North Carolina, where I live, it does have an annual reporting requirement. Florida has an annual reporting requirement where I'm licensed to practice. So it really depends on the state you live in. And each state has different requirements. Like California, you got to pay them $800 a year to as a franchise tax. Some states you file your LLC and then you have to file an information report within like 120 days of filing. So there's just, every state has different requirements. It can get tricky. Singing, dancing, muscle man in Michigan. I don't know. Did you ask a question that was related to Michigan? I'm looking through the chat. I don't see anything. Yeah, I don't see anything related to that, but okay. Any knowledge on peppercorn members? I don't know what that means. Any quality LLC business insurance recommendations? I typically tell people to go look locally. Like if you have a BNI chapter where you live, you might want to go to a BNI chapter and look up you can actually look it up online. You don't actually need to go to the meetings, and you can look up some some insurance agents and find one that you connect with, and when you're able to after COVID, take them out to coffee or do a virtual Zoom meeting with them or something, and just get to know them and see if you like them. I used to, like years ago, be in a BNI group, and I got to know the guy that I use for my insurance for my business through my BNI group, and he runs my fantasy football league. Oh shoot! Speaking of which, I think I missed my fantasy football draft earlier this week. So yeah, that's I would just go locally. Man, missed the fantasy football draft. That sucks. Does your LLC protect you from e-commerce liability, or should you get a separate liability insurance as well? I'm a small LLC, for example. I always recommend getting business insurance in place, even if you do have an LLC, just in general. It doesn't cost very much. You can get $1 million policy for like $300. What is my professional opinion on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency? I think it's gambling, which I don't gamble. Mike McAllip's book, Profit First, arrives for me tomorrow. Still listening. Appreciate everyone's questions. Awesome. Jennifer, you'll like it. You should also, if you're going to read it, that's fine. Read it. but get the Audible version and listen to it on Audible because he does these little side jokes and stuff. He's hilarious. It's much more enjoyable to read because of the way he does it. So anyway, great book. Sorry, I will have to watch this later with the answer to my question, but I hope you do this again as I have so many questions. I have to go for tonight, though. Good night. You rock. Keep it up. You're welcome, Renee. Feel free to drop some questions in the chat. Mello, should I form an LLC as a day trader? Are there any benefits? I mean, if you live in the United States, I was talking to somebody this week who was saying that somehow as a day trader, when they have an LLC, they got around the $3,000 loss cap. I guess the first thing I would say is if you plan on losing money, I mean, why are you day trading? No, I don't. I think all those. I don't think there's any tax benefit to it. I don't know. I honestly do not know. I'm not an accountant, like I said, and I'm not a day trader. I don't pretend to be a day trader. And so I've had clients in the past that set up LLCs. I mean, there's two primary reasons to set up an LLC. The first reason is because you want to protect yourself from getting sued. The second reason to form an LLC is for tax benefits. And as a day trader, I don't know that an LLC does either of those things for you. So the other reason potentially to form an LLC might be that you want to protect your financial accounts that are in the LLC from personal liability. So let's say, for example, you were to get sued personally, like you hit somebody with your car, or you had to go bankrupt or something. I think that I don't know that the LLC gets out of the bankruptcy, but might you have some protection there from personal debts? You might. That might be one reason to do it. I don't know. I'm kind of going off the top of my head here. Can you explain it's a registered agent, Carlos, and can you be your own? You can be your own. I don't recommend it. It's a registered agent is someone who you appoint to accept service or process for you if you were to get served with a lawsuit or maybe some important tax documents or something like that. Unless you're going to be home, you're a hermit who stays home 9 to 5 during business days and don't ever leave, I don't recommend it. Most of the people that watch this channel are solopreneurs or digital nomads or people that are traveling and working and they want that location independence. So you really do need a registered agent to serve in that role for you so that you can have the freedom you want. Otherwise, you're stuck to your house. Let's see. What is a good state to form an LLC for online business with international audience? I don't have an answer for that, Anatoly. We need to do a strategy session to talk about what you're looking to do. It really just depends. I would typically go to a state with no income tax, but it depends on a lot of things. Prince of Havendale, outside of liability protection, are there any real benefits for single-member LLC? It doesn't seem to have any tax benefits. It does have tax benefits. A lot of people think it doesn't have tax benefits, but here's the thing. As a single-member LLC, you can elect to be taxed as an S corporation. As a sole proprietorship, you cannot elect to be taxed as an S corporation. So from that standpoint, yes, there are benefits. If you're making enough money, and even if you don't need the liability protection, maybe the tax benefits are going to work for you. So I would say yes. Is trademarking an acronym the same as a name? I'm sorry, Diane. I don't know what that means. I need an example. Your videos have been a great help. Keep up the great content, sir. You're welcome. Wyoming, I don't know if I agree with that, Joe. It's funny. I did a video. The video I did this week, I talked about how I had followed a podcast with a really amazing internet marketer, I went to his website. He lived in North Carolina. He had a Wyoming LLC, or actually it was a corporation, and in his terms of service, he said that Nevada law applied. So if I were a lawyer and I had to take this guy to court, I mean, he's just biting himself in the butt. Like he's not doing himself any favors. There's no reason for him to be a Wyoming LLC. There's no reason for anyone to be a Wyoming LLC unless two reasons. You own property in Wyoming, or you're a multinational corporation with offices in Wyoming, so I guess three reasons. Or what'd I say? You live in Wyoming, you're a multinational corporation with offices in Wyoming, or you own real estate in Wyoming. Those are only three reasons to have a Wyoming LLC. There really is no other reason. I guess technically if you live internationally and you just need to pick a state for residence and you wanted to pick one in Wyoming. But like I said, the privacy issues there actually cause some of my clients more problems than if they just filed it somewhere else. So, I mean, yeah, if you live in Florida or North Carolina or Ohio or Kansas, there's no reason for you to be filing an LLC in Wyoming. Or Nevada, or New Mexico, or any place like that. Sorry. Can a registered agent be a virtual office? No. No. So when you hire a corporate registered agent, Carlos, they're going to have their own office for you. They're going to give it to you to put in your corporate paperwork. Is there any general stage in growth at which you would recommend an e-commerce business should register as a legal business entity? I mean, I don't really understand what you mean. Stage in growth. I am not up on everything that's going on with Amazon right now. I've got a friend who I'm going to be seeing on Saturday, and he has an Amazon business. I should have him on the YouTube channel because he knows a lot about Amazon and how it works. He's got a pretty successful Amazon business, I think. But if he'd be willing to talk about it, I should have him on the channel just to do a YouTube live and see if he'd be willing to do that, because I don't know anything about what's going on in Amazon these days. It's been 5 years since I've been at Amazon. It's changed a whole bunch. Excuse me. Joe says, good, passionate answer. Thanks. You're welcome, Joe. All right. I'm going to take a minute here. Since we don't have any people left, I'm going to put this, well, I mean, we do have people left, but I'm just going to share a link with you here. It's a bit.ly link. And if you go to this link, you're going to get access to the sales page right now for my Lock It Down Legal Toolkit. So I'm offering it for sale right now. The cheapest I've ever offered it for sale since I launched it last year. So normal price for the toolkit alone is $497, and then if you want to sign up for the monthly membership, that's an additional $97 a month. And right now, if you use that link below, it'll apply a coupon code for tonight only, where it'll give you $400 off. You'll be able to get in at $97. And then obviously if you want to upgrade to the monthly membership, you can do that. You get the first month completely free. So you wouldn't actually have to pay for 30 days for the other $97. And if you got in and after a month you're like, you know what, I'm really not going to use the membership, and you want to cancel it, you can cancel it and then you won't get charged. So in terms of what is included with the toolkit, I'll tell you this real fast. It's basically over $2,000 worth of legal templates. We have 40 plus video tutorials in there that show you everything you need to know about setting up your business the right way, from your LLCs to contracts to trademarks, intellectual property, all these type of things. We have, what else do we have? I should have made a list. Like I said, there's a money back guarantee. If you get in and you don't like it, we'll give you your money back after 30 days. So there's just a lot. The program is intended to help online entrepreneurs or people that are aspiring entrepreneurs, starting their business, get started, get set up legally from the beginning. That's what I want. And then in addition, you get access to 2 bonus courses. You earn your first $1,000 online as a bonus course. And then also the LLC starter course that I'm working on. You also get access to that as well, which that course alone right now is listed at $97. So if you use this coupon and sign up tonight, you're going to get that and everything else. I got a super chat from SportGuy17. Just a music studio video LLC in South Florida. I use an UPS address and open a business account strictly for your videos have been helpful. Thank you. I appreciate that, SportGuy17. That is, I appreciate the comment. So anyway, this is, like I said, this is the link. Let me see if I have a way to pin this. I don't know if I can pin this unless I'm on the page. But that is the link. It's bit.ly/38 capital D lowercase CW2K. And you can go there, check it out. If it's something you're interested in, sign up. If it's not, don't sign up. It's okay. We're going to be opening enrollment through this weekend. We're going to be offering different promotions and things. If you're not on my email list, you want to get on my email list, I'll email you other promotions that might come up over the course of the weekend. When the weekend is over, when Labor Day is over, the price is going to revert back to the $497. So tomorrow, the price is going to go up a little bit, and then Saturday and Sunday it's going to go up a little bit, and then eventually by Tuesday it'll be back to the $497. But I might have some other giveaways and things along the way. But you need to get on my email address for that, or just sign up, because right now is the lowest price it's ever going to be. It's funny, I was talking to my business coach today, and he's like, man, that's really cheap. You sure you want to do that? And I was like, well, yes, I want to get new members in, and I want to get a lot of people in, get a lot of feedback on the course, and help making it better. So Carlos says, do you have an affiliate program with your membership? That is a great question. Yes and no. You have to be a member to be a member of the affiliate program for right now. Number one. Number two, I'm in the process of switching over to, I just hired an OBM. For those of you who don't know, that stands for Online Business Manager, and she's going to be helping me switch over to a different platform. So we're probably not going to go live with the affiliate program until after we switch to the new platform. But there will be an affiliate program with that that I do want to roll out. That is something I've been meaning to roll out for months. I'm hoping that I will get that done this year. So yes. Anyway, I'm happy to take more questions about all the stuff we've been talking about for the past almost hour and a half, or if you've got questions about the toolkit, or if you've got questions about something else, or if you've got questions about what beer I'm drinking, whatever. Let's chat. Beer's almost done, and then the call is going to be done. So fire away. And thank you for the super chat. If I didn't already, thank you for that, SportGuy17. All right. Anything? Going once, going twice? Is everyone looking at the sales page for the course? It's a great course. I launched it a year ago, March, I think, April maybe. And I put over 300 people for it in it so far. Jennifer is a member. She's a lifetime member. Sean the Dawn says, I have a question. What's your question, Sean? Carlos says, awesome. Thank you, Carlos. All right, Sean, ask your question away. Do it. All right, Sean is not asking his question. Maybe you're still typing your question. What if I have never filed taxes? I'm 21 and just started making about $30K a year. Did your parents file taxes for you? If you have, I mean, here's the thing with taxes. If you don't have taxable income, then you don't have to file taxes. You don't have to file a tax return if you're not going to owe a tax liability. If you have taxable income and you're going to owe taxes, then you have to, file your taxes. So, will it affect your LLC? Not. I don't think so. No, I mean, they're never going to know it. The LLC is handled at the state level. Taxes are handled at the federal level, unless you're a state, and then, estate taxes, then it's at the state level. But it's two different agencies. Carlos says templates include operations of organization. I think you mean operating agreement. Yes. It's the articles of organization is what you use to set up your LLC. And I have instructions in the starter course on how to set up your LLC for each state. Like I said, I'm working my way through. I've got about 10 or 12 more to go. And if you live in one of those states that I haven't done yet, just send me a message and let me know, and I'll make sure to get the instructions up for that state. Sport Guy says, I have a question. When I first established my LLC, I used my home address, which I know is a huge mistake. I changed it to a UPS address, but my home address is still in the SunBiz. I was wondering, should I change my company name? No, that's not going to, if you're changing your company name to try and avoid people finding your address, I don't think that's going to do anything, because it's still going to show up under the same LLC. Because with the way you change your name would be, anything you file with the Secretary of State's office, especially in Florida, which is, they've got their sunshine law there. Everything's public record in Florida. Is going to be found. If you have your name listed somewhere, it's going to be found. The reason your home address is still on the SunBiz, it depends on what address you use. So if you listed your home address and you were as the registered agent, but you changed your business address to a UPS store, then you didn't change the registered agent, and vice versa, right? You need to make sure you change both of those. So typically, to change the registered agent in most states, you're going to file some sort of document that state prescribes for doing this, that's going to update the registered agent for the state. If you are changing your business address, then you may need to file articles of amendment that are going to change the business address. That actually is kind of tricky. I know that can be tough for people. Let's see. What other questions do people have? And while I'm waiting, I'm actually going to make this link a little bit easier for people to find. Let's see. Morgan says, starting out as a watch dealer in California, do you recommend forming an LLC, or is a sole proprietor fine? I'm thinking I might as well go for the LLC. Depends on how much money you're making if you need to file an S corporation this year. And the reason I say that is because you're in California. If you were to file an LLC right now in California, you're going to trigger an $800 franchise fee next April. And so if you live in California and you're thinking about filing an LLC right now, I would wait until January. Or I'd file it and make January 1st the effective date. And the reason for that is then you're going to push that $800 filing fee for the franchise tax out another year. Just something to think about. So I just saved you $800. Maybe you should purchase the legal toolkit, right? Anyone who's in California. And that goes for most states. If you're thinking about filing an LLC, as we start to get towards the end of the year, we start having those discussions when I'm talking to people about setting up your LLC. Does it make sense to set up your LLC right now or wait until next year? Because if you set up your LLC right now, then like I said, you might be triggering a big, huge annual fee that you have to pay next year. Now, for some states, it's not a big deal because either they don't have that requirement, like I talked about Ohio, or it's so small, or maybe you have to file a simple return. It's like a $10 fee. It's not a big deal. But those are things you need to be thinking about. And all that information is listed in my LLC starter course. That is also part of the Lock It Down Legal Toolkit that you get access to. So, and actually, I'm going to just update this while I'm waiting for more or more questions to come through. I'm going to update this to give you an easier way to get to that address, that website, so that bit.ly link is a little bit more complicated. So if you go to hawthornelaw.net/live, I think this will work. Oh, sorry, taken. So YouTube Live, let's try that. So if you go to this address, I'll put it in the chat. hawthornelaw.net/YouTube Live, that should take you to the same address. And let me just make sure it will. Yes. And it will apply the coupon code and you'll get that money off your order. So let's see. Question. Lisa said, when obtaining an EIN, is sales through a Facebook page considered an online business? Okay. I mean, I would say, yeah, it is. I don't know. I think probably what you're referring to with the EIN is as you're going through the EIN, they ask you a bunch of questions about your business. I don't know if there's a question about online business or not, but so I don't see the direct connection between those two things. Deborah says, is the toolkit a lifetime access? Yes. Yes. So I broke out the toolkit from the monthly coaching calls. So the toolkit itself is lifetime access for as long as I offer the program. And then you can add on for $97 a month starting after 30 days the Lock It Down legal coaching and mentoring. And like I said, this deal that I'm offering tonight is going to go away in about 2.5 hours. It'll automatically go away. And then tomorrow I'm going to offer a different coupon. But it's not going to be this much money off. It's not going to be $400 off. So it's going to be working its way back to $400, which is the price that it's for sale right now on the website. So hopefully that answers your question. What other questions do people have here? Anyone? We've been going about an hour and a half. Again, I don't mind going longer, but I'm happy to keep going. If you are already, I've had this happen in the past. While I really appreciate people that are already students repurchasing, if you're already a student, you do not need to repurchase. Also, a lot of my older students are grandfathered in. They don't have to pay monthly fees. So, yeah. So if you're already a student of the Online Business Legal Toolkit, the Lock It Down Legal Toolkit is the same product. I'm just in the process of rebranding and updating some of the videos, but it's the same product as it was before. Deborah says, thank you. You're welcome. So this is, again, the link to join. So I think it's getting a little quiet in here. I love talking to you. This has been a lot of fun, but I think we've answered a lot of questions tonight. We've covered a lot of ground. In terms of a day trader, short-term gains, are the gains taxable after closing the trades or once I withdraw? There's all sorts of rules that go on. I can't answer that question, unfortunately. There's wash sale rules. There's all sorts of rules that deal with that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know to answer that question. Mello Z says, thank you for taking your time to answer our questions. Stay blessed. Same to you. Please, I hope all of you have a wonderful night. We've been going about an hour and a half. We covered a lot of ground. We talked about trademarks. We talked about day trading. We've talked about Wyoming LLCs. We talked about regular LLCs. If you didn't watch the beginning, you should go back. It was a hoot, and I had a lot of fun. I'm going to be doing more of these. Every time I do them, I say I need to do more of these, and it reminds me how much I enjoy doing these type of things. Lisa says, I just clicked on the link. Is that discount amount correct? Yes, it is. It is correct for tonight only. So it's going away tomorrow. I want to, like I said, I'm trying to get some more people in so I can get more testimonials, so I can get more feedback on the course and things of that sort. Now remember, you need to sign up for the legal coaching if that's what you want. You're not going to be able to access the live coaching calls unless you sign up for that. So that is different. But you will be able to get in from so you get all the course materials and things. Sport Guy gave a super chat, $2. Thank you so much. Awesome. Thanks. Till next time. Thanks to you as well. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful night. I'm going to sign off, and be well, everyone, and enjoy your Labor Day weekend. And stay tuned. I might be doing another one of these sometime over the weekend. We will see. I haven't decided yet, but we will see. Thanks so much. Take care.